So welcome to our Sparx webinar on parental engagement during this remote learning period. Hopefully you'll all enjoy it and get something from it. I've really enjoyed working on this with my colleagues, so I hope you find it useful. Okay, we've kind of been through this already, but actually the presentation, as I've said, is being recorded. So if you don't want to be part of that, it's your final chance to turn off your webcam, and some of you have done that already, so that's great. We will ask that everybody mutes microphones anyway for the duration of the presentation, because some people's mics are very, very good at picking up and amplifying background noise, and it can be a little bit distracting. So if you could mute your microphones, that would be great. There will be opportunity for discussion, so I will invite you to speak and unmute microphones at certain points throughout. But we also have the comments feature in the top right hand screen. If you've joined the meeting through the Google Meet link, there is a speech bubble at the top, and Hannah's just put hello, so you can enter comments in there as well. And Hannah will read those out and we can discuss them, or if it's a quick answer, she can answer those in the thread as well. I'll just introduce myself and my colleagues quickly. My name's Lindsay Palmer. I work within the schools relationship team at Sparx, and we are there to support our customers and deal with any kind of queries or concerns or feedback they may have. So we touch base with our teachers on a regular basis. So some of us already. I also my colleague Hannah Cox in the meeting, who also works within the schools relationship team, and she's going to be, as I already said, checking in on your comments and answering any of those and bringing them up for discussion if needed. And we have Steve Brown in the chat with us as well, so some of you have already met him. And he is also within the school relationships team. I mean, he's going to be here and taking notes, any feedback that we think is useful to us and that we can take forward to other teams, but also to see if there's anything that we can do to improve on these webinars. We've only just started doing them in the last few weeks. So equally, if you have any feedback on anything you'd like to see in any future webinars or anything like that, then please do let us know, either in the session or you can email us afterwards. Okay. I think that's it for housekeeping. Just a bit of background from me before we move on. I have worked at Sparx for just over a year now, and before that I worked in school. So I was in school for about 11 years and worked as a TA initially, but spent most of my time as a history teacher. I'm also a parent. I have 3 wonderful children who I am attempting to homeschool moment with varying degrees of success. So one's age 10 and still at primary, and then I have one doing GCSEs or not, and then another in lower 6th. So I hope that I'm able to bring some experience from both sides of the spectrum, but by no means a definitive authority on it. So please do join in at any discussion points and kind of pull me up on anything you think that I've said that you'd like to add to or whatever. So okay, it's a bit about me. So we thought today we could look at how we engage parents in remote learning, because it can be quite tricky but very, very useful and rewarding. But also why that's important as well. But I think before we start that, just a general check-in really with you all on how things are going and whether you've had much contact with parents already, whether you've managed to. There's no judgment passed here at all. So please be honest if you've not had any contact at all. I know schools are varying in the degrees of contact. So some have actually actively been asked, some teachers, not to contact parents. So SLT has taken responsibility for that. But in some schools, for example, fee-paying schools, they have really regular contact with the parents. So there is a really wide spectrum, but it'd just be interesting to know if anybody's had any contact with parents, and if you have, whether that's been successful. So please feel free to unmute yourself or add comments to the chat.
I haven't personally had any contact with parents, but as a school, we're contacting parents and trying to encourage them to engage with the online learning that we've got in place, with varying degrees of success.
Okay, thank you. Do you find that parents, do you get feedback from parents equally? So is it a two-way thing, are you finding?
We've not had very much back from parents, so we've had the odd student that has suddenly leapt into action when we've contacted them, but apart from that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anybody else? Oh.
Yeah, Paul said, yes, parents carers of our students are keeping tabs on their distance learning assignments.
Great. Okay, thank you. I've got a few thoughts around this and a few suggestions. So I just look at kind of things we can think about around this, because obviously this is something that you're interested in. So we've been giving this quite a lot of thought. And firstly, just some things to bear in mind if you want to increase that engagement with parents when you're planning something, putting something in place. Just some things to think about. So one of those might be, how many emails is the school currently sending and when these are. So I've spoken to a range of teachers and of my colleagues over the last few weeks, and again this varies, but there are quite a lot of whole school emails going out. So it might be worth bearing that in mind. Either could you tag onto one of them, or do you want to avoid going out at the same time? Or perhaps if Mondays and Fridays seem to be quite busy days for whole school emails, so thinking around that and thinking which days it would be best for you to contact parents if you can contact parents, and also thinking about the best time. Oh, brilliant! That's a really good idea. So Paul uses Google Classroom and has added parents' addresses to that. It might be good to get a little bit more on that in a second, Paul, on what kind of things you communicate with them and how effective that is. That would be great. We will come to that in a second in the suggestions. Brilliant, thank you. So it'd be great to hear from you then. In terms of times, thinking about when you usually get the best responses. So I always used to be quite astonished that the emails that I sent out frantically at 4:30 on Friday afternoon when I was trying to go home were the ones that usually typically got the responses. So thinking about, if you're parents yourselves, when would the best time for you to be contacted be, and thinking very much about their schedules as well. Great. I think Google Classroom's definitely going to be a talking point in a second. Thinking about current policies, it might be worth just checking in with SLT or a head of department and just checking that there isn't a current approach around communicating with parents as individual teachers or departments. As I said at the start of the conversation, I know that a couple of schools have actually, the SLT team has actively said, please don't email them for a second. We would like to be the point of contact. So thinking about that and maybe, if needed, challenging that and saying you think it might be a good idea for you to contact the parents. But that's not my advice. That's just an idea. I just like to put that out there. And also thinking about any social media platforms that your school might use. So Twitter, Facebook, anything like that parents can interact with. So getting some good news stories and things like that going on there. So there's different things to think about around actually just going straight in there and kind of engaging those students. Just things to bear in mind. Hannah, I'm going to hand you over to you for the comments that have come up on this, if that's okay.
Yep. So we have, we're also using Google Classroom, but most contact is with students. And Paula said, we are an international school, so students are learning asynchronously. Emails get responses at all times of day and night. That's very interesting.
I wonder if you'd like to, would you be able to share a bit more on that with us, Paul? So is it that you're expected to respond to parents around the clock, or do you have set times? How's that working for you?
Sure, thanks for the lead in. So the expectation is at our school that the teachers are available during our normal timetabled lessons and during office hours. So we're holding lessons virtually for those who can make it, who are within a few hours time difference of the UK, and others are communicating with us outside of those times. So we're picking those up when we get in the morning, and replying to them, and the students simply respond when they are able to. And our the teacher meetings are still happening virtually, and they're happening the usual times, just now instead via video call and telephone rather than actually in person.
Thank you. Do you find, just out of interest, that you're getting more contact from parents now, or is it the same as you would usually?
Yes, we're definitely getting more contact with parents directly now. Previously, we've worked through agents being in international schools, so there's been a third party, so we've always sent reports via them and had feedback via them. There's often been translation issues to deal with, so parents' evenings, for example, via Skype have traditionally involved the students there as well. So we're communicating now more in written form. And therefore, the parents are more able to be involved. They've got their students, obviously, their children at home with them, and are much more able to interact with us more directly.
It's interesting, and I wonder if having that routine and them knowing when certain things are happening is helping with that. I think somebody else has got something to add there. Anybody else want to add anything there?
Hi, I'm Raj here. I just want to learn what kind of response is taken by contacting through this way. Are there a good amount of response? For example, the children are able to get up and get ready, and then able to attend the lessons according to the school timing. That's what I really want to know, that how much response that they got from the students, please.
Okay, I think from what I've heard from schools, it's going really well. So they start the lesson. Most of the students are there. They start the lesson, they do a starter activity with the students, and then they give the students then time to go off and complete that activity. So they're not necessarily, from the teachers that I've spoken to, sat with the children for the entirety of that lesson, but they do ask them to be present at a certain point in the day. And they felt that really facilitates communication with the students. I'm not so sure about parents in this instance, but definitely with students. I don't know how you feel about that, Paul.
Thank you.
No worries. Okay, I think we'll move on from that for a second, and if anybody's got anything to add to that, then please do add it in the comments and we can come back to that. So thank you. But yeah, in the schools that are running things in that kind of more structured way, they have both been fee-paying schools, so I will add that, but they have found that it works really, really well to get the students all together at one point. And one school in particular was keeping students behind, so looking at the lessons from the day before, realising who had struggled with that, and then keeping a small group of students behind to do our own separate kind of meeting with them whilst the other students went off and got on individually with their Sparx. So from that point of view, it also worked quite well. Okay, so moving on to some suggestions now, which hopefully you'll find useful. Oh, no, sorry, I've got ahead of myself. Just a little bit on why it's important to engage with parents in remote learning. So I'm really sorry if I'm kind of stating the obvious here, but I thought that it was important to state the multiple benefits rather than the obvious one of it gets students more engaged. So I think, firstly, it's quite important to recognise that motivation is important to parents as well, and many homeschooling parents may not have the level of education that we've had, and may need support and guidance just as much as their children do. And I think it can feel quite lonely for many parents, not all obviously, but for many that are kind of working with their children on this, and they might not necessarily be able to support them as best that they need to. And it can be really tricky to sit down and do this with children as well. So it's worth considering how you can motivate parents and support them as well as the children. For me personally, and for lots of other parents, I'm sure, being kept informed at the moment is really, really important to me. So if I take my primary school age daughter, for example, she's working on an online platform I'm working from home. I don't always have the time to support her with her learning. So it's really nice for me to hear from the school and have that reassurance that she's actually doing okay, because I'm worrying about, is she not doing enough, or am I making her do too much? So it's nice to hear from the school that actually she's ticking along quite well, and having that reassurance from her teacher. It's also a good opportunity for parents and schools to join forces, I think, and show the children that they are united in this, that they are standing together, and that they're there to support them, and that they have their best interests at heart. Sometimes it can be quite difficult to prove that, but I think now's a really good opportunity to build those relationships in preparation for when the children return to school as well. Many children are working even harder than usual. They feel that they're working even harder than usual, and I think that's highlighted by the fact that they're working in a solitary way. So maybe the intensity of what they're doing feels like things are a bit harder. So I think praising children, especially through the parents, so you're getting that recognition through the parents as well. It can be really powerful here, and I know that's something that we generally tend to do when we are in school, and I don't think now is any different. So I think it's really important to maintain that, and let the parents know that the children are working hard, and to reinforce that we really are all in it together. It's a phrase that we hear a lot at the moment, particularly in relation to the health services and the social care services. But education is important too, and I think for the children to see that their teachers are still there for them, they care about them, and that the parents feel that they're really being supported in this as well, rather than kind of, here's all the work, off you go. For them to know that there's someone there to support them, I think is really, really important. So that's the kind of whys behind it. If anybody's got any other ideas or reasons why they think it might be important as well, then please do chip in or add them to the comments. Okay, so this is the bit where I thought maybe we could open it up for discussion a little bit more in terms of suggestions. So we've got a few, but it's, as I said before, it's definitely not a definitive list. These are just things that we've drawn together that have come from other teachers, ourselves, and our own experience as both teachers and parents. But again, if you have anything that you do or that you're thinking of doing that you'd like to share with other people or hear more about, then please do chip in. What I'll probably do is go through 1 or 2 points at a time and then stop and invite discussion that way. So the first one that we had from somebody on our team who is also a teacher for Sparx is the e-postcards. She did that a lot in school, and she would still do it now, but maybe sending them through the parents, and again getting that recognition from parents rather than just directly to the students, because it can be quite a powerful thing. And I think especially now that they're in isolation and they're not necessarily surrounded by their peers, maybe more pertinent for the older students, it might be more meaningful to get that praise and for the parents to get that recognition as well. If you can contact parents directly, think about how your messages look simply when they come in the inbox. I'm getting a lot of messages at the moment from companies and from the schools, and just thinking about how yours looks different to everything else, and how you can get parents to engage with that email might be also something worth thinking about. Has anybody got anything to add on the points that I've mentioned so far? Any of those suggestions? Okay, great. We'll move on to the next ones. Thank you. So consider sending the good news. Rather, it's really tempting to focus on chasing, especially if you've got students that haven't engaged at all. But even if you haven't got anything specifically good to send about their child, there may be just a good news email in general. But even if somebody has attempted a login and not got very far, thinking about the phrasing of the email. Yes, agreed, Hannah. and thinking about how you can say, is there anything I can do to help, rather than we've noticed that they haven't done anything yet. So thinking about the kind of tone of the email, but also sending good news. If they've tried and they've not done very much, then a well done, you've tried really hard at this, thank you, is there anything else I can help with? And it's more likely to kind of provide the parent with a boost if they know that you're supporting them and that you're noticing that their child is making an effort. Oh, sorry. Again, I've mentioned this a few times, but I think it's really important that we are engaging parents in thanking them for their support. It can be very, very rewarding. As I'm sure some of you know, when everything runs smoothly, sitting down and getting a child to work and getting them to complete something can be very rewarding for everybody involved. But it can be really frustrating and draining, particularly if it gets to a stage where there's a bit of a standoff if a child doesn't want to do some work. So I think acknowledging the hard work in a simple thank you email, and thinking about just sending thank you emails. So not a thank you email with a condition attached. So saying something like, thank you for everything you're doing, now can you do this? Just a thank you on a Friday evening saying, hope you have a great weekend, we really appreciate everything you're doing. Something like that doesn't take much time to do, but can have a huge impact and really strengthen your relationship with them. So when the child does return to school and you do need to do that chasing, or you do need to meet them at parents' evening, they remember you as being the teacher that got in contact with them. And of course, maths is one of the two most important subjects, arguably, that they're studying. So I think to hear from their maths teacher carries quite a lot of weight. So that's something to think about as well. Has anybody got anything to add on the kind of way they might send emails? Any ideas around that? Is anybody sending thank you emails to parents at the moment, or you've done that previously and noticed that you got a positive response from it? Is this something that you're thinking about doing? Just pause for a couple of seconds there.
I think that parents play a vital role to make sure that the children are engaged. It is quite hard for them to prepare them and to make sure that they are present at the right time. So it is definitely very important for us to support them and encourage them. What I do is that basically, every week I just communicate through their personal email. I'll be sending exactly what has been done and how they could improve their work and stuff like that. So it's better to involve them and to make sure that they are part of the learning team. That would one way it would encourage them, as well as it will be a huge support for the students to progress well as well.
Thank you, Raj. I agree.
We have another comment from Seahurst. They said, we do a phone call Friday with a positive phone call home to a parent each Friday. No strings, just a positive phone call. This was before the closure, though. That sounds lovely. I wonder why it stopped during the closure. That might be nice to know.
I imagine something to do with using personal phones, but I might be wrong. I think that comment, oh, sorry. I think if that comment's coming through as a written comment, whilst we're waiting for that, I think the idea of having a day where you contact that parent, whether it's by phone, by email, by messenger, however that happens, it sounds like a good idea as well, because that parent then expects that contact every week. So that sounds like having that kind of time where they know you're going to get into contact is a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, they did clarify. Sorry.
That's right. We have a member of staff on duty in school every school day, and one of their roles is to contact parents and I think on the whole, so far they've been chasing students, but I think actually the positive phone calls is a good idea, so I'll probably put that forward.
Great, thank you. I think there are a few comments.
Yeah, so it was clarified that it did stop because of personal information, which absolutely makes sense. But I think that's a lovely idea.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Thank you. We even thought about using Sparx XP and seeing if there's a way. I mean, it's just a suggestion and we haven't thought about it any more than just thinking, I wonder if there's a way that teachers could collaborate with parents, even if the parents, it's just printing off a certificate or something, but working with the XP still. And still, if you were using any kind of praise system, carrying that on, or even creating one if you don't have one already during school closure as a way of motivating the students, but the parents could possibly get involved in that as well. So that might be something worth thinking about. I know that if my children, particularly the younger ones, were taking part in something like that, I think it would motivate her to do a little bit more. But that's something that's worth thinking about.
I don't think I know what that is. Sorry, can you explain?
Yeah, so if I don't think this is on the virtual classroom, but on Sparx Classroom, so our customers that have it usually in school or Sparx homework, we have a point system called XP, which is based on effort. So in its simplest form, the more the students do and the longer they spend doing their homework, the more homework they do, the more XP they get. And it stands for experience points. And then the teacher can see, has a view of how many XP each child has in their class. And they can use it to present awards in assemblies and things like that. Or some schools use it to feed into their own praise point system on ePraise and that kind of stuff. So it's something that we have in Sparx.
Okay. Thank you.
Framework. Yeah. Okay. The last point I had was social media. I'm very, very aware that the time is 4 o'clock, but I think it's quite a big platform to get into. Some people are quite wary of it, understandably, but obviously there are DP regulations that we have to think about and safeguarding. But if your school does have a social media platform, it's worth thinking about that as well. I know like quite often sporting events get posted on social media, music events, theatre, that kind of thing. But why not make it a mass thing and see if there's something you can post about specific classes, check in with the school, see how far you can go with it, but maybe asking parents for their feedback on how they think their children are going. Is there anything they need support with, and doing it that way rather than emailing parents directly, and seeing if you can get engagement there. That might be worth something thinking about. Do any of you use social media platforms already, or are you thinking about it?
The school does, and I can certainly put messages onto the school's Facebook and that sort of thing. At least I can ask for it to be done.
Yeah. Is it something you think would be valuable?
I think, yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Are you thinking something like a blog platform or something where they could interact?
Yeah, anything like that. Anything like that. I mean, Twitter where they can comment, or a blog, yeah, equally. Just anything where they can engage and interact, and maybe see some good news stories on there as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, great. Has anybody else got anything they want to add? It feels like it hasn't been very long. Anna, I think there's a comment there.
Yeah, I just noticed that one when I was writing my own. The school does have social media since lockdown. Many individual teachers have created a school-related Instagram account, but have all been kept private. Okay, that sounds useful. I think, speaking personally, some of my schools have said that they actually get a lot better interaction through social media than their emails. I haven't heard Instagram, so that's a new one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be good to hear how that goes.
Yeah, great. Thank you, everybody. We do, of course, have our Facebook page, which you're all on. So if anybody has any other ideas, then please share them on there. It would be great to get a real community going on there of different ideas, and perhaps you can get in contact with teachers from around the world, which would be amazing, and just see how different schools work in different ways. Okay, so done the thoughts. And Hannah's mentioned in the comments that we also have our knowledge base, so it's support.sparx.co.uk/knowledge. There are resources on there for parents, and we are adding more to this over the coming weeks. So we're going to do a support doc for parents, basically around the technicalities of Sparx, so how to make sure that the child is logging in properly and that kind of thing, and that they understand how it works. So there will be information going onto our knowledge base for you to send out to parents if needed. But in the meantime, I will leave you with this quote. So if anybody has got anything else to add, now's your opportunity. If you haven't, then I thank you all very, very much for joining. It feels like we could have gone on for a little bit longer, but unfortunately we are out of time. So yeah, thank you, everybody. It's really nice to see you all.